On November 19th, 2004, the Indiana Pacers were playing at the Detroit Pistons. What happened in this game would be known as the worst fight in NBA history, and it was coined the Malice at the Palace. It all started when Indiana was leading the game 97-82. Ben Wallace and the Pistons drove in, and Ron Artest gave him a hard foul. Ben Wallace then walked up to Ron Artest and gave him a very hard shove, which threw him back. This caused the referees to get involved and the coaches trying to break it up. Ron Artest went down and laid on the scorer's table. He did this to calm himself down so he wouldn't get into any trouble. But a Detroit Pistons fan threw a cup at Ron Artest, and Ron Artest boiled up and charged this fan. Another fan threw another drink at Artest as Artest was holding the guy. Steven Jackson on the Pacers then comes up and punches one of the fans who was attacking Artest. This punch knocked the guy out and just caused more fights. Jermaine O'Neal on the Pacers also punched a fan who ran at him. The Pacers tried to exit the floor, but they were encountered by fans on the court and throwing stuff at them. The refs had called the game. The Pacers were declared the winner, but the implications from this game would be known forever. Ron Artest was suspended for 86 games, including 13 playoff games. He lost $5 million in salary. Jermaine O'Neal was suspended 15 games and lost $4 million in salary. Steven Jackson was suspended 30 games and lost $2 million in salary. 86 games for Artest is the longest NBA suspension in history. Here's Mr. Conroy for his take on this.
What were your initial thoughts after watching the Pacers-Pistons brawl in full?
Interestingly enough, I happened to be in Indianapolis that night. There was a conference there, the National Council of Teachers of English had its conference in Indianapolis. And so I was sitting at a bar eating, and they had the game on the big screen. Now, the game was in Auburn Hills, Michigan, but obviously everybody at the bar is watching the game because the Pacers are playing. And so I'm sitting there minding my own business and eating, and all of a sudden I hear these gasps, and then all of a sudden there's just this, these people are like, what the? And I looked up, and it was pandemonium. I mean, Artest is throwing roundhouse punches. People are going up into the stands. One guy threw a chair. The fans were throwing water bottles back at the players. It was mayhem. It was absolute chaos. I've never seen anything like that. It was frightening. It was frightening, and I think that obviously it had an impact on the NBA because you see a lot more security now, and you see the games are called a lot more tightly than they were prior to that riot is about the only thing that you could call it, I think.
Do you think 86 games for Artest, he missed all of regular season in the playoffs, do you think that was appropriate for him as a punishment?
The only antecedent that I have to comment on that is the incident that happened in the 70s between a guy by the name of Rudy Tomjanovich and Kermit Washington. There was a scuffle on the court, and Rudy Tomjanovich went to where the fight was, and he was going to try to break it up. And as he was running up to break the fight, Kermit Washington, who was one of the players on the other team who was involved in the fight, saw him coming, thought that he was running at him, and turned around and caught Rudy Tomjanovich square in the face. And Tomjanovich had to have several operations to reconstruct his face. He was out for a really long time. And if memory serves me correctly, the way that they punished Washington was that he missed the number of games that Tomjanovich was out.
26.
Yeah, and so I think probably if you think of that, if you think of it along those lines, it probably was a sufficient deterrent. Although in retrospect, considering what Artest did to James Hardy this year, he clearly didn't learn anything from it. So maybe a more severe penalty might have been in order.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Conrad.
Yeah, that was about 3 minutes.